What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to break down recent evidence from the My Hero Academia manga and anime that confirms Monoma can duplicate one for all and permanently pass on the copies to other people. Unlike the current overpowered version that Midoriya has, these new copies would be more like the weak version of one for all that existed at the very beginning. In this way, characters like Bakugo or Todoroki can inherit these duplicates without suffering intense blowback, and essentially they will start a new lineage of the power that has their respective quirks inside it. As the video continues, I'll be explaining why the Public Safety Commission would want this to happen, and exactly how Monoma can use his quirk to make this a reality. If you're watching, I'm going to assume you already know what he can do, but as a reminder, he can temporarily copy the ability of anyone he physically touches. In this series so far, we've seen him replicate transformation types, emitter types, and most importantly accumulation types, and this forms the basic foundation of the theory. Accumulation type quirks operate by stockpiling some kind of substance, with an example being how one for all stockpiles strength, or how Fat Gum needs to constantly eat to stockpile body fat. Whenever Monoma touches someone like this, it's been confirmed that he does copy their quirk, but the one thing he can't duplicate is the substance that they need to accumulate. That's why when he touched Eri, he grew a horn in his head since he was copying her power. However, he would have needed a lot more time to build up whatever is required to start rewinding. The same drawback also applied when he replicated one for all, because whereas Deku has the strength of 8 previous generations, Monoma only had the accumulated power of like the previous 30 seconds. As a result, his duplicate was super weak, yet what it lacked in strength it makes up for in its ability to be transferred to other people. It's important for us to acknowledge that the transferability of one for all is a core part of what it is, and you simply just can't copy it without also acquiring that aspect of it as well. Monoma's version is totally new and independent of the one Deku has, meaning he is free to do with it whatever he wants, and it is very much a part of him until the time runs out. In the manga, there is solid evidence that implies he can transfer it permanently, but before we get into it, I want to thank Surfshark for sponsoring this video, which is a secure VPN that stands out for all the right reasons. Not only is it the only VPN I've ever had that lets me use it on unlimited devices, but it's also just really affordable. For a limited time, you can get an 83% discount off a 2-year plan, plus an additional 3 months on top for free, by going to surfshark.deal/TurtleQuirk. Being from the UK, there's a few anime that's not available on any streaming service, but thanks to this VPN, I was able to discover one of my new favorites of all time. When it comes to Death Note, it was something I had heard of in the past, but as I'm sure my fellow British people will know, the closest thing we have available is the live-action Netflix version. With one click, Surfshark allowed me to access so much new content, including the original Death Note anime, and after that I binged the entire thing in about a week. Surfshark protects your privacy as well by hiding your real IP address, not to mention other cool features like camouflage mode, which makes it so your internet provider can't tell you're using a VPN. If this sounds interesting, then be sure to head over to surfshark.deal/TurtleQuirk like I said, so you can get that 83% discount before it runs out. If for some unlikely reason you don't like the service, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it definitely doesn't hurt to try it out. Okay, so back to why Monoma can permanently transfer his duplicate of one for all. Let's start with the first bit of proof. Usually when he copies a quirk, it expires after a period of about 10 minutes, however that expiration specifically relates to his body. In chapter 215, he confirmed that some powers have effects that last even after the timer runs out, with the example he used being the size quirk. In that instance, he had used it to make certain objects larger, and those objects remained permanently large even after the ability was no longer in his possession. This was our first indication that the effects of a copied quirk can linger on after Monoma loses it, and I'm going to use examples to explain why certain ones do this and others don't. If he was to hypothetically copy All for One and steal someone's quirk with it, that stolen power wouldn't magically return to the person once Monoma's copy of AFO expires. The person who had their quirk taken would remain quirkless, as the copy of All for One would have done something permanent to their body. Likewise, if he was to copy AFO and give someone a quirk with it, I think we can all agree that they would keep that power after the 10 minutes was up, since their body is completely independent of Monoma. In each of those examples, he would have directly affected someone else's body with lasting consequences, since the nature of AFO allows this to be possible. This is different to something like Shinzo's brainwashing, since it requires him to constantly be in control. If Monoma copies something like that, then its effects will finish when the timer is over. But if you duplicate something like One for All, the effect of transferring it to another person is very much a permanent thing. Remember how I said that if he gave someone a quirk with AFO, it would remain inside them even after the timer was up? Well, that exact same principle applies to One for All, given that its transferability is literally the same concept. Now, moving over to info from recent chapters, we found out that One for All in its current state can't be transferred to anyone who possesses a quirk. Quirkless people like Deku are the perfect candidates for this immense power, but for people with existing abilities, it will shorten their lifespan by various degrees. The amount their lifespan shortens by seemingly depends on how many quirks are inside it at the time, and also how much stockpile strength it contains, hence why right now, it can't be held by an ordinary person. This is why Monoma's copies of One For All are brilliant, as they're restarting the entire cycle from the very beginning and will be able to add brand new quirks along the way. In the future, when these copies become stronger, the Public Safety Commission can literally create a super team of One For All users who are either born quirkless or genetically modified. I mention genetic modification because it is canonically possible for someone to have their body altered to withstand One For All. It's just that the only guy who can do it right now is a mad evil scientist. Anyway, I've just hinted at one of the reasons why the Public Safety Commission might make Monoma copy Deku, but let's talk about how things might actually unfold. In chapter 299, Hawks revealed the commission is effectively shut down after high-profile members were attacked. However, his wording does imply that they will eventually return. I personally believe they will come back because whereas the average hero stops the crimes that are happening in the present day, the commission was normally looking to the future and trying to prevent things before they went down. This is evidenced in a number of ways, including making Hawks infiltrate the League of Villains, forcing Lady Nagant to eliminate potential terrorists, and telling kids to participate in mandatory work studies in preparation for what happened afterwards. Even if many of their methods were both terrible and unsuccessful, the point is that a forward-looking institution like this is still needed to scope out bigger threats in the future. Thanks to the singularity theory, we know that quirks are becoming more powerful and complex as time goes on, meaning that one day there will inevitably be a villain who is even more overpowered than AFO. With all of the mixing and random mutations going on, a villain from the first generation is not going to be the strongest forever, and it's the responsibility of the Public Safety Commission to make sure the good guys are prepared for this. That's where One For All comes in, as in the manga right now it's a bit like an open secret, with several heroes and students being fully aware of what it is. The general population also knows Midoriya has multiple abilities, not to mention there were people outside his hospital demanding to know what One For All is after the war arc was over. This situation implies it might become public in the not too distant future, and if that happens, the commission will react in a big way. They obviously wouldn't want a power like this to ever disappear, and depending on how much they know, the first thing they do is look into the Quirk registry for quirkless individuals in Japan. By the commission keeping tabs on these people and their possibly quirkless children over the years, it's a great way of having a group to select from when Midoriya one day decides to retire. Currently 20% of the global population don't have a quirk, which is over 1 billion people, and although that number will decrease, it still means there should be thousands, if not millions of quirkless Japanese citizens when the time comes. Not all of them are going to be young people that aspire to be heroes, but if the commission continuously monitors the Quirk registry, they're guaranteed to find some suitable candidates who could be Deku's successor. The second thing they'd want to do is create backup versions of One For All in case Midoriya was ever killed before he could pass it on, and Monoma is the person to make that happen. By repeatedly copying Deku and then passing the weak copy to other heroes, there will be countless backups that will one day become as powerful as Midoriya himself. In 50 years time, you could theoretically have a version of One For All that has half hot, half cold inside it, and other versions that have Dark Shadow, Explosion, or whatever else it may be. These duplicates would also possibly have copy inside them as well, but I am a bit unsure about that one, so let me know in the comments, do you think these copies would have copy inside? Now, I know that some of you might be wondering if the heroes would be reducing their lifespans by having One For All, but we've seen that the negative effects take a certain amount of time to kick in, especially depending on how powerful or weak it might be. If Shinomori can survive 18 years after inheriting the strength of 3 previous users and 2 extra quirks on top of that, then you estimate someone like Bakugo should be able to take this blank One For All and have it for about 10 years with no lasting consequences. I'll reiterate again that these copies would have no power and also maybe at most 1 extra quirk, so yeah, I reckon someone like Bakugo could have it for that period of time, and then yeah, just pass it on to the next person. An example might be that Todoroki could have a copy for 5 years before passing it on to Tenya for 2 years, and when the copy becomes too powerful for ordinary people, the commission could make them pass it on to one of the quirkless candidates they've been training. In this way, the hero side would be guaranteed to have several multiple quirk users in the future, which will help fight against the possible rise in stronger villains. It will also safeguard society by making sure Deku's power doesn't die out, and for once it also means that people without quirks will be highly valued. While it is true that one day there will be virtually 0 quirkless people, like I said earlier, modifying someone's body to withstand One For All is already possible in this universe, so it's just a question of turning that idea into a more humane method. Anyway guys, be sure to let me know what you think of the duplication theory down below, and don't forget to hit that sub button as it's my personal goal to hit 400k by the end of the year. There's also the 83% Surfshark discount that I mentioned earlier, and if you want to get it then go to surfshark.deal/TurtleQuirk. Until the next one, peace out.